I'm going to sing a song for you today about freedom fighters. Specifically, they are the freedom fighters from the Irish Rebellion of 1916. The Irish had been oppressed by the British Empire for close to 1,000 years. And on Easter Monday in 1916, they launched a revolution that actually took place over the course of the next 6 years and eventually led to the creation of the Irish Free State and also eventually to the Republic of Ireland. So this Easter Rebellion was really the first battle of that revolution. The Irish lost this battle, and the 7 men that led this rebellion were immediately executed. But they had done this amazing revolution that inspired not only Irish people to continue the fight after they were dead, but they inspired freedom fighters all over the world to try to overthrow oppressive governments. It was taking place during World War I, and all of the great powers, the ruling classes of these great powers who were fighting for world domination and greed, and they were using the working class of each of their countries as cannon fodder to fight their wars. In Ireland, this was particularly egregious because the British were oppressing the Irish and then forcing them to fight in their crazy war. There is a reference in the song to the Battle of Gallipoli. You'll hear in the words the Suvla and Sud el Bar. This is a reference to the Battle of Gallipoli, where thousands of Irish men were forced to make suicide charges into machine guns. Now, a year after the Irish Easter Rebellion, the rebellion inspired women in Russia, in St. Petersburg. The Russian women, their husbands were being slaughtered on the Eastern Front. They themselves were starving to death. It was International Women's Day, and they staged a spontaneous revolt that ended up overthrowing the Tsar of Russia, the Tsars who had ruled for hundreds of years were now overthrown. 8 months later, that led to the Bolshevik Revolution. Vladimir Ilyich Lenin led that revolution, and he was the strongest voice for ending Russia's participation in World War I. His revolution was successful, but Lenin was assassinated shortly afterwards. And Lenin was a comrade of James Connolly, who was one of the 2 most important leaders of the Irish Easter Rebellion. Then in the United States, socialists were bitterly protesting America's participation in World War I. James Connolly himself had lived in America for a number of years and had been participating with the socialists, with the international workers of the world, the Wobblies. And these socialists were actually inspired also by this rebellion in Ireland to protest America in World War I. Thousands of them were thrown into jail, including their great leader, Eugene Debs, who had put into jail all just for protesting the war for years. He was an older guy, his health deteriorated, and he ended up dying soon after. The other main people who were actually inspired, though, by the Irish Rebellion were in the country of India. It was right after World War I, actually. The Indians decided to stage a peaceful protest. The Indians actually had only been oppressed by the British Empire for a mere 200 years, as opposed to the Irish closer to 1,000. And the Indians protesting was something that was never done in India. But they actually mounted this protest, inspired by the Irish. The British opened fire on the protesters with machine guns and gunned down 500 people, men, women, and children, as they were running away. They shot them in the back. This was known as the Amritsar Massacre. And it triggered a 30-year-long revolution in India that eventually led to freedom for India from the British Empire. It was called the Amritsar Massacre, and if you saw the movie Gandhi, starring Ben Kingsley, the Amritsar Massacre was the opening scene of that movie. So now, I'm going to sing this freedom song for you. It's more specifically about the Irish, but to me, I want to dedicate the song to all of these freedom fighters who died at around this same time. So, there is one reference in the song. It is a reference to the Liffey River, which runs through Dublin, and that's where the Easter Rebellion took place. So here is the song. I think any of the other references will be self-explanatory. Down through the glen, one Easter morn, to a city fair rode I. There armed lines of marching men in squadrons passed me by. No pipe did hum, no battle drum did sound its loud tattoo, but the Angelus bell or the Liffey's swell rang out through the foggy dew. Right proudly high over Dublin town, they hung out a flag of war. 'Twas better to die 'neath an Irish sky than at Suvla or Sudel Bar. From the plain of Royal Meath, strong men came a-hurrying through, while Britannia's Huns with their long-range guns sailed in through the foggy dew. The bravest fell, and the requiem bell rang mournfully and clear, for those who died that Easter tide in the springtime of the year. The world did gaze with deep amaze at those fearless men, but few who gave their lives that freedom's light might shine through the foggy dew. Back through the glen I rode again, and my heart with grief was sore, for I parted then with valiant men whom I never would see no more. But to and fro in my dreams I go, and I'd kneel and pray for you, for slavery fled, oh glorious dead, when you fell in the foggy dew.